All right, says we are live. Hello,
Nice.
and welcome to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. We've got Ramsey here with us. We're going to be doing Words of Radiance, the second book in the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. And then buttons. Hiya. All right, remember this time.
Yeah, we forgot that last time.
I threw it in at the end. I had no real major, direction or game plan for all this. If anybody has something specific they would like to talk about, throw it in the comments. We'll throw it up, try to address it. Bear with us, trying to multitask as we are. And yeah, I guess any insightful things going on for channels, Ramsey?
Other than, I've kind of been participating with that Storm Along 2020 that Christy Lewis is kind of spearheading, and that's been a lot of fun. They're reading it a whole lot slower than I did. I reread it in like 5 days because I couldn't stop reading this book, and super excited to talk to you guys about it. I did a Cosmere video on like shards because Roshar has 3 shards on it with honor, cultivation, and odium. So I thought that'd be a cool video to kind of get out there and kind of talk about, because it's a difficult thing to learn about, I guess. Brandon Sanderson has some great world building, and that's a huge part of it.
Yeah,
I guess for the shards, they're fairly subtle and kind of like hinted at, but it's not. What's that book of multiple short stories? I don't know if it's really like deep dive or explained.
Arcanium Unbounded.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
I haven't gotten to that one yet, but
I
hear that's got great connecting points for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you need to get that on your to-read list, Pete.
And then read everything included with it, right? Because
I don't think you've done Elantris.
Okay, yeah, that was his very first book.
And then there's White Sand, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ramsey. We've talked about it off air, but you're pretty current on the Cosmere, right?
I've read everything in the Cosmere except for a couple of the short stories.
Okay.
So I'm working through Arcanium Unbounded now, but White Sand is a weird animal. I've actually heard that if you want just the text version, not the graphic novel version, you can go to brandonsanderson.com and he'll send you that.
Really?
And it's actually his. I haven't tried it yet, but I didn't really enjoy the graphic novel. It wasn't his normal, really quality stuff. And so I'm hoping to get that soon and read that. But
okay.
It's the cool thing about Arcanium Unbounded is you get this. They give you like maps of the universes and stuff. And so it kind of shows you like how the worlds work and which planet has stuff on it and all that kind of stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. It takes a little bit as people start going through Brandon Sanderson to really absorb the whole Cosmere concept. And I found when I went back and reread like Mistborn more recently, I caught a few more of the Easter eggs and the Hoyd references and just kind of like the subtle little nods, which is nice because it helps with the reread ability, right? But yeah, Words of Radiance, huge book, so much happens. Going to do our best to do it justice, but it's going to be hard to do so in the hour or 2 hours that we end up going. But yeah.
Did you guys have any like assumptions before you started the book that came true or didn't come true, and you're like, oh man, I was way off?
Oh man, this is a reread for me. So I'm trying to think back to the first time I read it. I really just remember blowing through it so quick because of how amazing it is.
I think it's a reread for me as well, but I started off with Mistborn, and after the twist for that, I try not to make any, hard, fast assumptions like this is what's going to happen. Yeah, I think a lot of it, Brandon just does so well directing you where you're like, okay, this is a guy we love to hate. Okay, this guy should die,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you made that comparison, Pete, with the Lord Ruler and what's the king's name with the hospitals and whatnot? Maybe Ramsey can help me here.
Teravangian.
Yes.
He's not what you expect at all.
Yeah, he really isn't. And it seems to be a reoccurring theme for Brandon where like the necessary evil or the people that are trying to do good in their own way, but at what cost, right? And we really get to see that with Kaladin's journey throughout this book as he kind of loses his abilities there partway through. You can definitely empathize with where he's coming from, but it goes against like Sill's values.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. The book starts out, and I remember just being so excited about Yasna and Shallan kind of like teaming up, and we're going to see that kind of like mentorship and everything. And then Yasna dies, and it's just like, oh my goodness, like here everything was setting up to come together, kind of like a reunion with Yasna and Dalinar and all that, and then
Though I thought it was great for Shallan's like development and really like emphasizing her spren, the lie spren, where she takes the mentality of the vault. And I don't know if you guys watch Adventure Time, but essentially any catastrophic or soul crushing things that happen that they just don't want to think about, you just lock it in the vault, and that's kind of what it made me think of. But then throughout having a reference or a model or someone you look up to who has explained it, and then to watch her struggle through trying to implement it without someone having to watch over her shoulder and really developing her spren, and then that, I guess, jump to the end for the whole Yasna bit where Hoyd or Wit is waiting for her, and then the whole line where she's waving around her shard blade, and he's like, well, we can pretend this is going to hurt me, but it can't really. And there's a lot more to Hoyd that I'm still curious about.
I remember watching one of Sanderson's live streams, and he actually talked about how he was kind of like regretted doing the fake out with Yasna, and because he wanted to take her away for character development, but the killing somebody and bringing him back thing has been done so many times. He kind of looked back on it and went, I don't know if I want to do that, but you can't take it back now.
Right.
I think he developed with it very well because it wasn't explicitly stated. We got to see her what we would perceive as die, but then there was also that little nugget where she's switching cabins and she goes into Yasna's cabin and she should have seen the body, but she didn't. So it's like, oh, did they take it upstairs? Whatever. So and then we're not talking about it, but then it develops more and you get more, keep pumping this, you get more insight after book 3 for the whole trip.
Yeah, that's really cool when that finally comes around in Oathbringer.
Yeah. How about for you, Ramsey? Was there anything like going into the book when you were reading it that was kind of like a big surprise or twist for you, besides the whole emotional roller coaster that Brandon's always good about taking us on?
The one that got me the most was when you find out that Helleran was killed by Kaladin. And that was like, wait a minute. And then she tells the story, and while they're in the high, hiding from the high storm, and he's like, oh crap, that's me. Does she know that that's me? Like, that's my story. Like, I kind of sort of told that story about like where I got my shard. You know, the shard bearer that I killed is this guy, and this guy is the shard bearer that he was killed by. So that was the one that got me the most. I didn't expect that at all.
Just talking about that before we started up here, and just the way this whole book, it really doesn't have like a main character. It does, but it doesn't, and it wants to play as if like it's this huge world, and you know we've got to save all of humanity. But then through several instances, it kind of brings it all back together. And the biggest one that connects to that is I can't remember the Light Eyes, but anyway, Moash has his grandparents or whatever die because of the Rashon incident, where they die in prison, and then Rashon gets sent to Kaladin's town, and then due to the whole White Spine incident, that's when Rashon's son dies, and he takes it out on Kaladin's family, where his younger brother ends up getting sent off to the military, and then you know that's where I volunteer as tribute happens, and Kaladin goes with him, and then he ends up killing Shallan's brother, which it's just like all interconnected throughout that, and big world but small world at the same time.
We get to see a lot more of the factions too in this book, which is kind of nice. Brandon's just a master at world building and kind of layering some of those pieces on, and to learn more about the Ghost Bloods as well as the other different factions at play. And then I really enjoyed seeing more of the listeners and everything they have going on.
Yeah, that's a weird one for me, because like at the beginning when you're meeting them, it felt like, okay, they're just trying to survive. Like, we have our differences, and they have a lot more, I guess, dedicated lore to the gods, and because they bond with different friends to take different forms. And then, we find out they essentially gave up all their forms because of what the gods were asking of them, and that's where they got dull form, and now they're trying to rebuild, but at the same time they've got the lore. And then that one spren and that one transformation, and it all goes downhill. But then the weird little snippet or insight is like, bad situations don't make bad people, and Rashon, or not Rashon, the Parshman Bridge 4 Bridgeman, who eventually gets armed with the spear, and then he comes back, and due to, not being treated as a slave, and due to, Dalinar's sense of honor and justice, and, arming him, and Kaladin's whole, trials and tribulations he goes through, he comes back, and he's like, everyone I know is dead. And then after the whole battle for the High Storm, or for the center, and at the end when we find the Oath Gate, it kind of makes you think like all of those are dead, and we know how Parshmen are treated. But I don't know. I'm curious to see if there are more that can come to our side, and if due to random situations and, as we know in 3, and I won't say it, but there are 2 storms. One storm will make them into the lightning odium people, and then there's still the Storm Father that can come by, and they can still transform again. So I'm curious to see how that whole faction develops.
Right. There's also the Splinter group, right, with Food and Ashina's mother.
Yeah, when they
got away. And I think the majority of the soldiers from that group were from her actual battalion, right? Yeah. Food and everybody else. So not all hope is lost, because the listeners are able to change forms, right? So they might be able to change out of the quote unquote void bringers. But yeah, what's the name of the storm that's going the wrong way?
The Everstorm.
The Everstorm. Thank you. We need to have you on more of these. I'm following Peter's footsteps on forgetting names and details for this. But yeah, that's supposed to go across with the Spren and transform all the Parshmen into Voidbringers.
Can you imagine like how awful it would feel to come home, like after being a spy or something, or leaving your home for a while, and then everyone you loved and knew were possessed basically by demons, and you came home and you're like, those aren't the people that I know and I love. You are the only people that I have left. So he goes back to Bridge 4 and says, like, this is now my family. This is all I've got left. Like, how scary that would be. Like,
I love Rock for so many reasons because of, like when he brings that up and he's like, oh, it's a small thing. It's okay. You're Bridge 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would just be downright awful because he's away for like 3 years, living behind enemy lines, getting treated of the lowest of the low, away from family, friends, and everything else. And then, to go back and to see that, yeah. Thank goodness for Dalinar being the man that he is now in Book 2, to accept him, because many of the other high princes would have just slain the Parshmen and moved on, right?
Well, and that it's all like started off with the Web of Lies, where Sadeas and his lady were trying to get Kaladin killed, and hey, we'll put a Parchman on your team to see how he reacts when we're attacking the free version of him. And then it just all works out with the sword and Oathbringer, and
gosh, there's just so much to cover in this book, between Shallan's journey and Kaladin's journey. And we get to spend a good amount of time with Adolin too. I was looking at the stats, and I guess I didn't realize it, but like nearly 10% of the book is from his point of view. And we really get to see just him and Kaladin's relationship develop, where Kaladin just has this strong hatred for the Light Eyes, right? And then he slowly builds this respect for Adolin. And then,
Well, another thing that's kind of funky is, so Sadeas is pretty much like, we both want to be ruler, and I built this, kingdom, and the only way to make a better one is to destroy it first. And through everything that happens, that's essentially what happens. Like, we can't continue on as we know. There are a lot of big powers, and there's a lot of things going on. Like, we can't continue on with our Parshmen. We can't squabble over different land. Like, this is a fight for survival, and essentially everything's been destroyed to be rebuilt. And oh man, that by far was my favorite kill, when Adolin just grapples with Sadeas and kills him. I was like, I didn't quite think it would happen, but that just like solidified how like this is no longer Light Eyes just being like, oh, I've got power, oh, I want power. This is like, there's the Everstorm. Parshmen are, going to kill us all. Sprens are coming back. All these epic powers and everything. Like, that was the, like, this is real. We can no longer deal with this. And I was talking to Carl about it earlier for Televangian and his whole thing, and how he interacted with the Night Watcher Spren and asked a boon or capacity to stop it. And then he had the Day of Brilliance or whatever, and essentially wrote a whole book or a whole room of, depictions and things that could have happened. I think we have 3 factions, because
I think so.
We've got, because the Televangian has his own faction, the Radiance or whatever Yasuna faction, and then we have the Ghost Bloods that are all trying to do stuff, and they all feel as if they are doing what's right for the world, and that they're going to be what saves them. And I guess so far it seems like most of them have had direct contact with the oh, the Spren magic.
The old magic.
Curse. Yeah, the old magic, because we know Dalinar, because
The
you
Night
can't
Watcher,
remember his wife's name. We don't know what his boon was, but we know Dalinar's been interacted with it. We know Televangian's interacted with it. And then when Shallan, sorry, tangent, is dealing with the Ghost Bloods, and she finds the woman wearing the mask when she's supposed to pick up her notes or whatever from the tree. And when they're, infiltrating to find the madman who is the final surviving, what were they called?
Herald.
Herald, thank you. The final surviving Herald. And then I think there's a line about something like, it almost looks like carapace or something extra, which makes me think that she's a world singer or a parshman or whatever. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Because otherwise, why would you have to wear the mask? And
well,
so anyway,
something crazy too. Like I just got done reading Era 2, and there's a group of people that wear masks, wooden masks in Era 2, on Mistborn in Era 2. And so, they talk about all the world hoppers. Maybe she comes from
kind of like another Hoy.
Yeah. Because nobody on our planet wears the masks, but there's a whole group of people in Era 2 that wear masks like that, and like they're very decorative and they never take them off. So it's kind of maybe that's a world hopper.
Okay.
And that's how they got their insight, because we don't know how the Ghost Bloods know all they do. Or wait, is Televangian in charge of the Ghost Bloods?
I think they call them just people that follow the diagram. I don't know if they have a name. But they like supposedly. And then, when you were talking about the Night Watcher, Lift also visited the Night Watcher.
Yes. Her abilities are pretty fun.
Yeah.
She's just an overall fun character, right?
Man. There's a line.
She kind of annoys me a bit.
Oh, yeah?
She's all right.
What is it? She's infiltrating the palace, and the kid's talking to her like, "Oh, you're crazy. I see you talking to yourself all the time." And she's like, "No, I just talk to myself because I'm awesome." There are times where we've got so many smart devices, and I'll be like, "Okay, Google, blah 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 blah." People are like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm not talking to you."
Okay. See, I don't like talking to the robots. I don't want to teach the AI anything.
Yeah, they're listening anyway. That's why it always pops up in your feeds or whatever whenever you're like, I should buy.
Oh man,
they're all listening. It really is. It really is. But yeah.
So I guess on that note, extrapolation.
Go for it.
We know there are supposed to be 10 orders, and we know typically only one of the Sprens comes across, like the Yasuna has one, or Shallan has one, Kaladin, Dalinar, Lift, the cobbler, the shoe guy who gets met by the Night Watcher, the assassin in white, who's now a different person.
He didn't have a sprint. The assassin in white. He had a honor blade.
He had a honor blade, but then he dies, and the guy who brings him back gives him a sword. And I thought the fact that the sword can speak to him, I thought it was a sprint.
Have you read Warbreaker?
I was just about to ask. I've read it once. I don't
think I have.
And I remember a talking sword from Warbreaker, right?
There is a talking sword from Warbreaker, and it's been confirmed that that's that talking sword.
Oh, okay. So that one's
the Cosmere at play, huh?
Okay, Warbreaker and the Stormlight Archive are the most closely connected.
Okay. We're supposed to get a sequel to Warbreaker eventually, right?
It's called Nightblood, which is actually that sword.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the guy that trains Kaladin in the training arena, he's also a character from Warbreaker.
Oh, see, I was hoping that he would somehow, because Kaladin has that whole what should I do when both choices are bad? And he pretty much tells him whatever can make you or allow you to sleep at night. And he wish he took that. But then we end up with the whole like Kaladin losing his powers, but getting him back because, and I was hoping somehow he would rectify his decision prior and get his friend back.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I need to go back and reread Warbreaker because I'm trying to remember whereabouts he is.
His story is really, really cool. If you do read Warbreaker again.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll make sense because like stuff doesn't translate. But the way that it was described to me is that because Roshar has 3 shards on the world, the investiture is stronger. Like the magic is so much stronger on Roshar than everywhere else. So the world that he came from only had 1, so it helps him. So he came here for that reason.
Okay. And then Mistborn has 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have Ruin and Preservation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And then he said that in every book there's a what are the shape changers from Mistborn?
Oh, Khandra.
Khandra. Yeah. So there's in every book there's a Khandra too. So we don't know who they are yet in Stormlight Archive, but somewhere there's a Khandra. We yet to figure out who it is. So that's gonna be cool to find out.
I'm going to have to watch for that when I go through Oathbringer, getting ready for next month's Stormlight stream.
Yeah.
So yeah. This book, it just everything scales up just that much more in this book, leading up to the final act where we have the great big battle and everything. Peter already shared his favorite kill. Did you have a favorite kill, Ramsey? Besides Sadeas?
Sadeas' kill was great. That really worried me for Adeline because you get to know him so much. Probably my favorite kill would be the final fight on the plateau right before the storms come, and so all the regular guys like Dalinar and the High Princes and stuff are fighting Seth before Kaladin makes it back. And who was it? Was it Rion? Where
one of the High Princes?
He's considered like the coward, but he's one of the first ones to go and try to kill the assassin. And then like he gets thrown up in the air, he gets killed, but like he goes down as like one of the biggest cowards, but now he risked his life. He fought the assassin by himself. And like, I thought that was like a great kind of redemption for him. And
I agree. I agree with you there. And just Dalinar's way of kind of handling them all, like leading into that charge, right? That final battle where, he has his little pep talk for each of the High Princes. Yeah.
What did you guys think about when we find out that all shard braids are dead sprint? Like that blew my mind when I found that one out.
We had some subtle hints, and again, maybe it's just because I've reread the series so much and I love it so much. But yeah, it really makes you think, especially when Syl goes through and explains that like they're dead, but they're not really dead. And how like humans are the ones that are weird because when we die, like something leaves us where everything else, like it's still there because they're forces. My mind was blown with that, but it also eludes a lot of potential, right? And just like
I was gonna say, because like for me, it was a big shock, but it at the same time just adds more questions, because kind of like the same thing with the weapons master and how Kaladin lost his powers. I figured there's a means of redemption, and since the Sprens have gone from the cognitive realm to the other realm, they're still here, and whoever broke their oaths can't rectify it. But what if someone else, because that's where it's like all connected for me in the weapon and these sword styles, there's like the wind stance, the stone stance, the fire stance, and what if those are more like general ideas of the Srens and of the different orders, where due to their nature they prefer a certain stance that, you know, is not empathetic, is justice, or how they do it. And then so we've got all these dead Spren shards that then, based off of their look, for it looks like flames, is flame stance, is whatever Spren, then someone could say the oaths after reviving them and could potentially recuperate it. I don't know, that would just be cool. We have 10 books to get through, maybe. The bigger question that it brought to me is, in book 1, Dalinar has a vision where he's essentially just an everyday person out at a farmhouse, and he has to save the little girl and the wife, and he takes on the beast with the pokers. And then we interact with the Radiance, and they perform the regrowth on him or whatever and heal him up. And their shard plate, the helm, disappears, and he's like, oh, where's their helm? Where did that go? So in my mind, it's either A, the same Spren, or B, another Spren. And how Yasuna and Shallan have 2 powers, or each order has 2 powers, but then those 2 overlap, and how they both have soul casting. So maybe you can get 2 Sprens or an accompanying one, as long as they, you know, like it's all connected kind of deal. And so you get another Spren that's parallel and shares one of the orders, and then they can be your shard plate. I don't know. Wouldn't be...
My thought was, when you say the right ideal, you know, because like Kaladin's only said 3, and so he got like a power jump when he said the 3rd one at the end of the book. I'm thinking that when he says the next one will be when he gets his shard plate. And being that Shallan, you know, Pattern said that she's already said all of the ones for hers. I think if she just thought about it, she probably already has it, but she just doesn't know how to summon it yet. But for me, I don't. That's not confirmed, I don't think. But I think when he does his ideals, he'll get it.
Makes sense. The only reason that didn't quite connect for me is Adolin's younger brother, because he wears the shard plate and he doesn't hear the screams, but then when he summons the shard blade, he hears the screams. And you know, that could be something like due to him saying the first oath and getting a Spren, and which is essentially his shard blade, and him not hitting that tier or hitting that, it like doesn't resonate with him, and he can't hear the screams of the broken oaths. Like, yeah, I guess I could see it that way. But yeah, that was a bit of another surprise for me when Renarin, when Renarin was finally like, nope, there's 4. It's me.
Yeah,
I'm just like, what? Yeah.
I had to look up what type of guy he was, like Truth Watcher, right?
Yeah, I think it's Truth Watcher. I don't know a whole lot about it.
Like, yeah, I didn't know what he did, and I always want to figure that stuff out. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah.
Well, and that makes me think, was he the one doing the wall markings? Like, I don't think he was. I think they finally confirmed it was Dalinar for the countdown, but like, yeah, as they're on top of the portal and he's like spazzing out and just writing zeros on the wall. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, he really puzzles me. Like,
he's an interesting character. Yeah,
I don't know. I think
powers are supposed to be.
It's kind of a forward-backward thing. Like, the book 1, Kaladin is constantly fighting between the Sturgeon and the Warrior, but then going into book 2, he's primarily the Warrior, and then he has that moment where he's talking to Renarin, and he's like, oh, well, what are your symptoms? Okay, it's this. Okay, it's that. And he's like, oh, it's just field medicine, but it's not really. But then by the time we actually have a chance to get anywhere with it. He's probably going to absorb enough Stormlight and cure his ailment anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant, but it's a good point to kind of cover up the fact that he was actually hearing screams in his head and it wasn't his ailment, because when he goes out with Adolin and they're helping the other Light Eyes and doing their collecting their shards, or not shards, their gems. You know, he said, "Hey, it's not my ailment, it's whatever." So,
yeah,
it was a great way to hide it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed when Renarin joined Bridge 4 and just like that whole interaction there. You know, I already liked the guy. Cool. But had more respect for him when he was willing to go and kind of serve in a spearman's battalion. And then we get to learn a little bit more about Dalinar, about how he made Adolin do something similar. And just his eagerness to fit in. It's hard not to like the guy. Yeah.
Oh man, another great moment for me was Adolin's about to get, stomped. The disadvantage bout where he's up against 4 shard bearers, and when freaking Kaladin jumps in there, man, that whole scene and fight, and
oh man, that fight scene in the pit when Adolin realized he was up against was it 3, 4?
It was 4.
Yeah,
4. Yeah.
I was right there with him. I was like, "You're such an idiot. Why did you do that?"
Yes. And then when it takes that turn and we realize that they're not going to let him surrender, right? Like they want to maim him and whatnot. And Dalinar is about ready to throw himself in there and has to get talked out of it. So then we get Kaladin, who jumps in there to save the day.
His line was fantastic too. He was
yes.
like, well,
yes,
take care of my man.
How'd it go? Honor's dead, but I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. And he didn't know about the visions yet, so he was like, by him saying that, it was like a prophecy. It was really cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's a truth watcher, because it said that he has progression, which would be the healing element of.
I don't know if he had healing, but it's just what all the Radiants have for they absorb Stormlight, they heal.
Right, but some of them can heal others, right?
But that was unless it's related to Lift's abilities, because Lift had the slickness or the awesome sliding, but then she also had regrowth, which I don't know the Emperor King guy who can survive the Assassin in White, little nobody who might end up being somebody. And that is another thing we talked about at the beginning or before this, where there are so many nuggets or pieces of people being in places that can really save our bacon down the line. Like we got back the Parshman Bridge 4 guy who is now in the form, who can give us insight there. We now have Moash, who feels as if he became a traitor again, and he betrayed his family, who were, essentially committing suicide to try to bring the friends and become the Radiant.
That's Teft.
Oh, that's
Teft.
Yeah.
Well, Moash just sucks.
Yeah.
I guess hopefully Moash ends up in a position with the Ghost Bloods where, he can save Kaladin's bacon or whatever later down the line. And then we also have Shallan, who is the Radiant, but is also connected to the Ghost Bloods because they're bringing her family over. And, she is a soul caster, but we have a lot of
that was another big kind of head twist for me, was when we learned that she was actually the one that poisoned her father. Right, like we get little nuggets of that in the first book and into the second book, And then like finally we find out that she's the one that poisoned him.
And father.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only did she poison him, she also took the chain and strangled him.
Yeah. Killed both her parents.
Yeah.
And then at the end with yes, Kayla, spoilers up and through book 2, and we're going to do our best to avoid spoilers for Oathbringer, though we have a bad habit of we might slip up. So if we do, apologies in advance. With some exceptions of the lore, just because it's kind of hard to remember where exactly we are lore-wise. But yeah, killed both her parents, and then
and with the room, and that's where like there's a time and a place where you need to just forget about distractions and you need to dial into what's going on in life. But that's a bit extreme where she has several moments that someone is speaking to her about a situation and she'll just like completely blank it out, and that whole section will be chopped out, and then she'll like come back as soon as they're done. And
yeah, it kind of like Dalinar when he can't hear his wife's name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lost my train of thought. It's late on Sunday night. It's really interesting, and for book 2, it really kind of hit home for me that people who become Radiants are kind of like broken and reforged in a way, right? We see this reoccurring theme with the different characters who become like Knights Order, or along the path of Radiance, where they've all kind of been broken, right?
Well, I feel sorry
like cracked, not fully broken.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Cracked or gone through some sort of struggle, or and book 2, we really get to see Shallan's story there. Book 1 was Kaladin kind of seeing where he got cracked a little bit. And then
Yasana's at the very beginning, because the beginning is
true.
Kind of like a time hop back when she's talking with all the different assassins trying to keep her family safe, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The girl that what's her name? 10? She's not the same girl from the beginning, right?
No,
she's not the same one, but I had the same like, where had I heard this name before? And I thought it was going to be referenced later in the book, and I just never quite connected it. In book 1, I remember there's someone who breaks into people's houses and then just like destroys their artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
wasn't sure if it was her, but yeah, I had the same like deja vu moment where I was like, the name sounds familiar, and it like really connected after they said the bodyguard, and I was like, wait a minute, like, yeah, but I never put it completely.
There was
together.
something about that lady that you're talking about. She said something like, "This is not what we really look like," and so it made me think that she was a herald. But I don't know if that's true or not, because like she was messing, like she would go past like other art, but anything that had the heralds in it, she was like smashing that up and defacing it. So I had the thought that maybe she was a herald, and she was like, oh, like, I don't want you to worship us anymore. But that's obviously unconfirmed. That's just kind of me thinking about something.
Yeah,
and we get another hint for that with Lift when she's going through and she's like under the table or something looking at a painting, and she's like, oh, well, why would someone gouge the eyes out of that?
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of fits the whole moniker of, a woman shard bearer, which up until, book 2, we didn't think was a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a hint in book 1 that Shallan has a shard blade already. She said something about drawing that shard blade. I thought that was really cool how they on a reread, it's like, oh yeah, they do kind of say that, don't they?
The little hints and the little nods. Yeah. And then the one that Yasna meets, the assassin, quote unquote, she's known for gouging out eyes.
Yeah.
So we kind of get a hint there that she has a shard blade.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, maybe she doesn't want the heralds to be recognized. That's a good point too, Chaz. There's a lot of different factions we find out in book 2 kind of pushing their own agendas. Like with, go ahead, Pete.
One that like is hinted at, but not really, we don't get a whole lot, is the whole truthless assassin in white, because, you know, he was the one who blew the horn and said, hey, the Sprens are returning, the Radiance are going to return, you know, time is upon us, and they named him Truthless and got rid of him. But it makes me wonder how much lore and how much prior history they actually have, and, you know, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And then the blue eyes, blue nail guy in book 1, I think he's trying to figure out like intoxication spren or something, and we get that whole scene.
Yeah, we see him in book 2 though.
Yeah,
don't
we see him in book 2 with the giant great
merchant
shell.
Yeah, merchant. When they go to
with, the merchant girl.
He's hanging upside down and this and that. But another side note, random line of thought, with the first book, there are they're servants, not servants. The sword masters one,
Ardents,
thank you. They're Ardents who are measuring the flame spren, and when they measure the flame spren, it's stagnant and stays. So Shallan only can really, like, when she first connects and figures out what pattern is when she takes a memory and she draws him. Now, they say Sprens have hard times like fully hiding, but could that be how he's being bound? Because, you know, she said she couldn't perfectly depict his lines. I don't know. I just thought like he could somehow get a power up from her. Well, I guess they did destroy the book because it got lost with the sea. I don't know. I just thought that was weird how when they measure them, they're stagnant and can no longer change. And then that's how she finally catches him.
It was like when she finally defined him.
Yeah.
Like he became real.
Right. And popped off the page. Another thing that really kind of hit home for me in this book is like Yasna. We find out like in the first book, you know, she talks about like pretty much gives this feeling that we're behind, right? That like the end or the time of desolation is almost here. And then we see that the Herald shows up and he feels he's late. And just the fact that like with our Truthless, he tried to sound the alarm however many years ago, and then Shallan and Kaladin were kind of getting their power so many years ago that, you know, now the Voidbringers are here and we're not prepared, right?
Well, and that relates back to like the very first book, very first scene when all the heralds, you know, leave their blades and walk away. And then the herald we end up getting essentially is a madman because he's trying to bring all of these things back, but those people aren't there. And then one of the weird scenes where not Hoyd visits Shallan while she's at the fair and has a message from Halloran, and then kind of like helps her express her powers and is asking for a scene and talks about how there's a blind man and he's like, oh, you know, I keep praying to get my eyes back so that I can see the beauty. And then the other guy, you know, offers counterpoints and how, hey, you know, what about this? What about that? And eventually it ends up like, if a man only knows pain, then, you know, is there still beauty? And it goes through and it talks about how or she responds with, the time where he feels less pain would be the contrast and would be the beauty in it. And then we get the Herald, and it's like, yeah. So.
Yeah. That was one of the many laugh out loud moments I had in this book when everybody was recognizing Wit, and they're like, you, me.
Why did you hug him?
Yes. You don't hug Wit. You know?
And then he's like all of a sudden just driving the wagon.
Yeah.
And, like did he tell the he told somebody a story, and it might have been book 1. And it was like the running scene.
Or
that's book 1.
Paladin. Yeah.
No,
it was
book 2. Yeah, when he's in prison.
Yeah.
And man, that one was so powerful because like Kaladin was actually telling that story, and it was like he was imagining, but somehow like I want to learn more about Hoyd's storytelling abilities, because like he was pulling the story out of Kaladin, and Kaladin was like, I didn't know about this story, but he's like, I've never heard this story before. You just made this up.
Right. It's your story.
And then there's another point when Kaladin is like finally about to get his powers back, and I forget if he says it to someone or he just says it to himself, and he's like, Hoyd never gave up, or so never, or
Flint never gave up.
Never stopped running, and it was just.
It's another way to say the journey before destination, right? Like you gotta. It's about the journey getting there. Run as much as you can, knowing that you tried. And in the end, like that's what matters, even though he died. And that was kind of like, Kaladin remembered that lesson when he finally took to heart, like, I got to do what will let me sleep at night. Like, oh, the king is Dalinar's Tien. Like, he's trying.
I was a little weepy at that point.
I was too. Like, pulls at your heartstrings, right? Like,
and then the contrast between like he comes down and he's like, I can't even get a simple bridgeman, and also the her Daisian mother.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's great.
The king's all hung over, and
in my house you're whatever.
Up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys think with him talking about the shadows in the mirror that Elhokar was getting a spren? Like I thought that. Like he's like the people, like he talked about something talking to him.
Yeah.
That's very
true. It makes you wonder.
It
really does.
Different ways of depicting, because Yasuna in the pre-log thing, she gets her shadow to go the wrong way. And then with Shallan, she sees the abstract art thing on the water and in different spots. With Kaladin, he can see Windspren, and and I think that that could be a thing. It would definitely be quite a revelation. My thing is, like, I guess he is kind of broken or cracked, but not broken. And I don't know what redemption quality he would have to, what order he would be. Yeah, but it's weird, the fact that when Kaladin came, the other things went away. Which, I don't know. Because I guess with all the others, like, Shallan already had her spren, and she was trying to help Renarin in the pit fight or in the arena, but then you also had, like, they could see each other in that, and then when Yasuna was on the boat and Shallan finally gets Pattern and opens up the door, and then Shallan can see Yasuna's spren, little guy in a hat or whatnot wearing a coat, and so I guess by that point they're like already bonded. So it might be that he has potential, but it's not like fully coming together yet. So I'm not 100%, but every time there's been multiple sprens, they've still kept them, but they've also already said the words and are already bonded. So I'm curious if, due to whatever, his mentality changing, him not being as paranoid, the king embodying whatever, that's when they left because he felt like someone else was taking care of it. And maybe maybe the king's like paranoia or needing to protect or, find the hidden stuff is what attracts a spren. I don't know.
Do you guys think that when the person that bonded a spren dies, that spren can then move on? Because like the cobbler guy, we didn't have a shard blade fall to the ground when he died.
Yeah, that's a good question, and how that works.
Well, because that's weird, because he was already like bound, in my opinion, because he already used the power of the healing and the regrowth.
Well, the shard blades that fall are the ones that are dead spren, right?
Yeah. So when your human dies, does your spren get to move on and pick another human?
It's a good question.
It might be back to that like levels and layers bit with when we were talking about the shard plate, because he may have only said the first ideal, which gave him access to the first two powers, but then saying the second or third ideal. I think it's a third when they get each one is different because Shallan only had to say one. But
and then she got a shard blade.
Yeah, I think that's
where Kaladin had to say 3 before he could summon Syl as a shard blade.
I think Windrunners have to do 5 total.
Okay. And they're also supposed to operate in pairs, I believe we learn. So,
well, Lopen grew his arm back. He started growing.
Yeah. Tef says that he noticed some of the guys glowing.
Yeah.
And absorbing Stormlight. So it'll be very interesting to see.
I read something, probably a spoiler for Oathbringer, that I'll wait until we get to the Oathbringer discussion. I'll bring that up.
Okay. Okay.
It gets good.
I'm so excited because Oathbringer focuses on Dalinar, and yes,
it is so good.
Don't want to get into spoilers there, but yes, we need to get through that book so we can do some theory crafting for book 4. And yes.
Well, the little lady was asking me to put her to bed, so I'm gonna back out, and I will come back and I'll watch the rest of the live stream, guys. It was so much fun to hang out with you.
Yeah, appreciate having you on, Ramsey. Thanks for joining us, and yeah.
All right, yeah, we'll definitely, if you guys want to do Lost Fleet, that's I'm enjoying that one. I know we're in that one, so
yeah, that too. Sure. I'll make sure to plug the details on the stream for everyone else. So,
all right,
thanks for hanging out.
Bye.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hints at the end.
Yes.
It's interesting how we get Yasuna back, and Dalinar bonds the Stormfather. And essentially says like you'll be shardless, which
he was already going that direction though,
but yeah,
right?
He gave up his shards to Renarin. And then the one thing that makes it weird is the Herald or the Madman who had a shard blade, but then let it go, and Dalinar bonded it, but when he pulled it out, he heard the screams. So, like,
yeah.
Or did he hear screams, or was it just like a shock, or like the fact that someone else could give it up and someone else could bond it, kind of like,
yeah, I don't know if he heard screams. He said it felt wrong, but that it shocked him.
Okay,
because
so maybe that guy didn't actually break his oath.
Yeah, because the honor blades, Kaladin can hold.
But that's not an honor blade. Not the one that, and that's what was weird, because the assassin and white, or the Shin or whatever they are the ones who have been protecting the honor blades.
Okay.
But, we only know of the one that the assassin had.
Right. Supposedly there are 10 quote unquote honor blades, right? And we learned from Syl that the Spren kind of base their abilities off of the honor blades.
Yeah.
Because they're fragments of him or something like that. Like she's an honor Spren. So she's based off of that blade and its abilities, but
The
Zeth,
blades don't have the checks and balances.
yeah, and they use so much more Stormlight than people who have a Spren do, right? Like she
Yeah.
says a dangerous amount. I really enjoyed the fact that she could change her shape to be like a spear.
Oh man,
That
like,
fight scene in the sky as they're flying around and everything. And
Yeah.
Kaladin's like, this is my territory. The winds are mine. You're trespassing. And then just going from like blade to spear to, I think at one point, like shield. Yeah. And just like all that fun stuff.
I'd make for a good game. And that's where, like, I'm sorry, it's probably my Final Fantasy moments.
Yeah.
Maybe, anyway, there's games where it's like rock, paper, scissors, where like, you know, spear beats sword, you know, arrow beats spear, and you know, whatever. Anyway, so 3 and each one beats the other. So that'd be kind of funky to have like a physical combat game where you could swap weapons.
I would love to have a Stormlight Archive video game / MMO. Yes. So much good stuff. It's hard to do this book justice. What else do you want to cover on Words of Radiance? I'm excited that we finally found Urithiru, and we'll get to see more of that in Oathbringer. Yasna's back. Kaladin didn't completely screw up, and he gets his abilities back. Did you think it was going to take him that long to tell Dalinar? Like, he goes back and forth from the very beginning when Dalinar's like, I need to found the Knight's Radiance again. Like it's in the first part.
Solidified it for him was that whole Amaranth bit, because like he told Dalinar, and Dalinar looked into it, and Amaranth covered his tracks, and essentially, you know, 18 people were there to vouch for it, and yada. But then he pulls the, you know, I'm sick, I'm really bonding, a blade, double talk thing. And just the way he brings it out, it kind of sucks that we didn't get to pin him down and execute him, but it brings it to, hey, he's supporting another faction. This is another big player that thinks they're doing what's right for the world. And, you know, that was a big turning point for it all, where if you were willing to kill for one, you'd be willing to lie for one. But at that point, he didn't have his powers. So
I'll admit, like, I had my doubts and was disappointed in Dalinar there, because like up until that point in the very beginning of the book, like you just have so much mad respect for Dalinar and you feel like he can do no wrong. But then when Kaladin comes to him and tells him this, you know, it seems like Dalinar just doesn't believe, right? Just kind of like brushes him off.
I don't know if it's that he doesn't believe. He just knows the Light Eyes mentality and knows the court system and, you know, all of that. And so,
no, I'm talking about like in the beginning, before we realized that Dalinar kind of set Amaranth up to like trick him.
He said he would look into it. I guess from Kaladin's view,
it seems like
it might have been because it's a reread.
Yeah.
From Kaladin's view, he was like, oh, you know, look, he didn't do anything. He didn't believe me. And Syl's like, no, it's the right thing. I promise.
Yeah. I find it really interesting when they get into the talks with like Syl about perspective, right? And how like so much of it seems to come down to like their personal truth and values. Because like at some point he's like asking her like, well, is killing bad. It's like, well, what about, killing the percendi? It's like, oh, that's different, but well, like, how is it different? And this, that, and the other. And a lot of it seems to come down to like his personal truth and realizing what's wrong and not wrong. Just like with the king, right? Like agreeing to help Moash.
I think a lot of that came down to the third oath he said, where I will protect those who cannot protect themselves, and that's where it's like,
even if I don't like them,
is wrong.
Yeah.
But due to that oath, and this is where you have given your word, and that's where I think there could be variances. But
yeah, it shows us some of the challenges and potential traps there, right, that they can get into.
Yeah.
So
that's where I really want a freaking redemption for that ardent swordmaster guy, because
Zyle.
It pretty much says that he had a spren and he expects to hear a voice, but there isn't one.
Yeah. He's a fun character, right? Like when Kaladin shows up in the middle of the night to take him up on his training, and he's like, there are two sword masters that live here, and he's like looking around, seeing only one cot. It's like there's one that's a grouchy old man, who hates everybody at night, and something.
Who is a grouchy man who has a soft spot for people in over their heads or what.
Yeah,
that was some good stuff there.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun. Ramsey's right. You need to add a Warbreaker to your to read list. Do that before Elantris. I'm not as big a fan of Elantris as I am.
Elantris was like his first book.
It's his first that got picked up to be published.
Okay.
He freely admits that he wrote like 12 or 13 other books prior. And I'm really interested to read Stormlight Prime, which we get with the Kickstarter edition, where it's like kind of his original first draft of it, but not the actual published version. So it'll be interesting to see kind of the differences between what he originally wrote, the unpolished version, before, several million words later in writing and publishing.
It would be interesting, but it would be a mind flip, because is it canon or should it have been canon?
So, it's not canon, but that's okay.
But that's where you get tripped out, because like if you let stuff slip or pretend to explain more, I don't know. Anyway. Like I'm pretty sure there's going to be, or I can't tell if we've been exposed to all 10 orders or all 10 versions of Radiance yet.
I think with the interludes and the intros, by the time we get through the end of book 2, we've at least heard of them. We may not have met everyone or know that we've met everyone who's part of each of the orders, but they've been talked about or have been kind of those little snapshots.
Story,
yeah.
And that's where, like, I'm pretty sure the tradesmaster who meets that random blue eye character gets a spren when she falls off the head of the island and has the spren save her. And one of the parts that really throws me for a loop is sidestep. Lift is facing off with Darkness guy who has a shard blade, who throws this like thing at her and it absorbs all of her stormlight, and then they go through and they pull all the
I think it was like a creature.
It was a creature that absorbed all the stormlight, and I'm not sure if that's the same creature, but I would like to think that this person is going to back over to the tradesman girl. tradeswoman, that she gets saved by the spren or the soul of the island, which, you know, you're what did the trade master say? You have to be bold. So that's going to be kind of the premise of the spren that saved her. And then she also gets this Stormlight stealing dragon thingy, which could be cool. Pure speculation, but
yes. I am super pumped for Oathbringer. Looking forward to going back and rereading that and geeking out over that one. Last Sunday of the month, and then in November, last Sunday, we're going to do Rhythm of War. Get a quick plug-in here / interlude. As Ramsey said earlier, I have been participating in a read-along with Ramsey on Rajathon. Hopefully I said his channel name right. And then Unity 151 Sci-Fi Booktube. They're doing the Lost Fleet series read-along. Huge fan, really enjoying going back and rereading it. Trying to talk Pete into checking it out, though it's not his flavor. We might be able to twist his arm and get him. Did you start it?
I got through like 4 books of it.
Okay.
So I've been spoiled with other more action-packed things.
Is Peter a book snob? Is he getting to the point where
for my flavor is the combat, and it makes a lot of sense. And
it's a different combat.
More about, you know, the justice of the situation and doing what's right for your men, and it dragged on for me, and I've only set down like 2 series, and the first one is the Wheel of Time, where like I had already read up to book 3 in the Stormlight Archives, and then I tried to go read Wheel of Time, and
he didn't get to Brandon Sanderson when he took it over, man. Like, I'm with you. They call it didn't finish. I think it's like DF. You know, you DF'd it.
And I would like to go back and finish them, just because it is such a big series. It's just the variant of like, tune in next week to see, and like when you're right on the edge and you get that extra time to build up the hype and to personify it in your own means, and then it drops and you're like, oh yeah, that's everything I hoped for, or WTF is this, versus marathon moding and Netflixing it. So
yes. There's a reason why when I gift out Brandon Sanderson, I start out with Mistborn, because it's such shorter, and even that's pretty long for people. The Wheel of Time drags, so I understand why you didn't finish it. But that's just like, again, why Brandon Sanderson is just so incredible, because as huge as these books are, they don't drag. I don't know if you feel differently about it, Pete, but like everything in this book is like not necessarily action packed, but it's building, right? It's scaling things up. It's
adding elements.
Tweaking
perspectives.
It's either working on character development, world building, something just like bringing it all together and scaling it up and making it incredible.
Sorry, you were outroing.
Oh, yeah. We've said it a number of times. It's hard to do this book justice in the short amount of time we do for these live streams. We could easily do a live stream on each part. If you guys feel like we missed key important parts, please toss them in the comments below. Really looking forward to getting current with this series so we can do some theory crafting. If that's something people are interested in, we would love to have a couple more avid readers on here and do some hardcore theory crafting prior to book 4 and maybe even after book 4, because it'll probably be a while before we get book 5, as much as Brandon Sanderson is a powerhouse pushing this amazing stuff out.
Yeah, he's juggling quite a bit, right?
He releases 3-4 books a year. He's on it. Maybe we'll get a little bit more with COVID keeping him from doing his tours.
All that and stopping Mistborn, whatever
screenplay and whatnot, which we have that on our to-do list. Going to be talking with Chaz over on his channel about screenplay and casting for that stuff, which should be a lot of fun. Final thoughts on Word of Radiance, Pete? Anything you feel like we really missed?
I feel like we covered it pretty well. I'm excited to continue the series and for the 4th one coming out.
Yes. Looking forward to spending some holiday time with Rhythm of War and just expanding this universe that we're having a lot of fun playing with, and seeing Urithiru in Oathbringer, right? Like, we finally made it. This is what they've been searching for all this time. And for Yasna to come back, and Stormfather bounded, and the Lopin starting to glow, and some of the other guys starting to glow, and Shallan with the Ghost Bloods and her family coming to Urithiru and being part of the Knights Radiance. And then the what was the one with the king? I just blanked on his name again, with the diagram and everything, and how Moash is now part of that. Yeah, and Moash is now part of that. There's just so much good stuff going on right now.
Oh, the assassin in white, truthless guy who's now no longer truthless, has kept to its oaths, talking sword, go take out the people who are holding all of the honor blades. But who gets them, and how are they no checks and balances?
And then Kaladin is going to be doing a reunion in book 3, right? Yeah, because at the end of book 2,
it's like, if it's going that way, I'm gonna go save my parents.
And then just seeing the dynamic there between the Knights Radiance, right? Because like, it's totally messing with the social classes. Dark eyes and light eyes. Like, you're going to have a whole bunch of bridgemen who are supposedly glowing.
That's the thing that Brandon does well, where he puts someone above someone else, saying they have the power and this is the reason. And it's like, just kidding. That's not why at all. It's due to this other reason.
Yes.
And, for Mistborn, it was due to allomancy and it breeding true, which, is what it actually was. But, that's not a reason to subject people to that. And then same thing, like, now that Kaladin has said the final words and his eyes are light blue.
Not final.
Or
third.
Not
third
final,
ordeal. Right.
Yeah. His eye colors have changed, but
yeah. Yeah, he's not too happy about that. Yeah. So Oathbringer, last Sunday, next month. First Sunday, the next book we're going back to the Completionist Chronicles, book 2. Really fun lit RPG. If you guys haven't checked it out, you should, by Dakota Kraut.
Is that Rajathon?
No, maybe.
Sorry, I should have looked this up.
Yeah, shows how prepared we are. Probably going to keep with that format.
We'll be releasing a TBR soon.
Yeah.
Falling Behind.
Yeah, no, you're right. Regicide, book 2 by Dakota Kraut, Completionist Chronicles, what we're doing next Sunday, tentatively at 8 p.m. Eastern. Last Sunday, we're going back to Stormlight Archive. I'm going to talk to Ramsey and Unity 151 about the Lost Fleet series. Whatever flavor of book you guys are into, we're having fun dabbling with it, enjoying geeking out with you guys. We're happy to see new and old faces in the chat today. Thank you to everyone who contributed and made time to hang out with us. Yeah. Am I missing anything, Pete?
Nope. I think that wraps it up.
All right. Thank you kindly, guys, and bye.
Bye.